A special thank you to each of our subscribers who make this channel possible. Here's today's story. On Tuesday, May 6, 2025, Israel launched a series of airstrikes that have sent shockwaves through the Middle East, targeting Sanaa International Airport, the main airport in Yemen's capital, which is under the control of the Houthi rebel group. Eyewitnesses and airport officials reported catastrophic damage to the facility, rendering it inoperative and destroying key infrastructure. Among the casualties were 3 civilian aircraft, including jets from Yemeni Airways, which were directly hit. The departures hall and runways suffered extensive damage, and parts of the nearby Al-Dailami military airbase were also struck. The Houthis have claimed that the airstrikes resulted in the deaths of at least 3 individuals, although these figures have not been independently verified. The airstrikes come just 2 days after the Houthis launched a long-range ballistic missile that nearly reached Ben Gurion International Airport, Israel's busiest air hub, injuring 6 civilians. This missile strike marked a significant escalation in hostilities, prompting Israeli authorities to temporarily halt flights and activate air defense systems, which unfortunately failed to intercept the missile. In a recorded statement, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addressed the nation, asserting that any force threatening Israel's security would be held accountable. He emphasized Israel's right to defend itself, stating, "Whoever attacks Israel bears responsibility for their own blood." Netanyahu's comments underscore the strategic nature of Israel's military responses, as he indicated that decisions regarding when and how to respond are made with careful consideration. The Israel Defense Forces (IDF) later confirmed the airstrikes, describing the targeted infrastructure in Sanaa as being utilized for the transfer of weapons and operatives by the Houthis. Beyond the airport, Israeli fighter jets struck additional locations in northern Sanaa, although the full extent of the damage is still being assessed. Local residents reported widespread power outages and disruptions to industrial activities as a result of the strikes. The day before the airport attacks, Israel had already targeted the port city of Hodeidah, Yemen's primary entry point for food and humanitarian supplies. The Houthis reported that this strike resulted in at least 4 civilian deaths and injured 35 others. Hodeidah is critical for Yemen, as it imports approximately 80% of the country's food and essentials, heightening fears of a worsening humanitarian crisis in a nation already ravaged by civil war and famine. In the aftermath of the airstrikes, the Houthis accused both Israel and the United States of coordinating the attacks, although a U.S. defense official denied any involvement. Mohammed Ali al-Houthi, a senior Houthi political figure, dismissed the Israeli airstrikes as failed terrorism and vowed to continue supporting Gaza, warning of impending retaliation. He stated, "Support for Gaza continues. The response is coming, and Netanyahu must prepare his resignation." Following the Israeli strikes, the Houthis reiterated their intention to impose an aerial blockade on Israel, targeting airports and civilian infrastructure as retaliation for the ongoing conflict in Gaza. In a surprising development, former U.S. President Donald Trump, who has recently returned to the White House, announced that the United States would cease its military operations against the Houthis, citing a mutual agreement. Trump claimed, "The Houthis just don't want to fight, and we will honor that. They have capitulated." However, Houthi spokespersons clarified that this ceasefire would not apply to Israel, suggesting that further attacks on Israeli assets are likely. This latest escalation marks a significant geopolitical shift in the Middle East, expanding the scope of the Israel-Hamas conflict beyond Gaza and involving Iran-backed proxies like Hezbollah in Lebanon and the Houthis in Yemen. While the U.S.-brokered ceasefire with the Houthis may provide temporary relief to Red Sea maritime routes and reduce direct U.S. involvement in Yemen, Israel's continued military actions and the Houthis' commitment to retaliate indicate that the crisis is far from resolved. International humanitarian organizations have expressed deep concern regarding the strikes, particularly as they target civilian infrastructure such as airports and seaports. With Yemen already facing one of the world's worst humanitarian crises, further destruction could lead to massive civilian displacement, food shortages, and blockages in medical aid delivery. The United Nations has yet to comment officially on the recent airstrikes but has previously urged all parties to adhere to international humanitarian law and avoid targeting civilian facilities. What began as a missile exchange has quickly escalated into a wider regional confrontation, drawing in multiple countries and armed groups. As the Houthis target Israel in solidarity with Gaza and Israel responds with overwhelming force, the prospect of a broader regional war looms. The world watches closely as diplomatic channels remain strained, and the region inches closer to a potentially larger and more devastating conflict. The implications of these airstrikes could be far-reaching, affecting not only the immediate parties involved but also global geopolitical dynamics in the coming days and months. That's all for this story. We upload videos every day covering many different subjects, so hit that subscribe button to stay informed. Thanks for watching.